Welcome back, tennis fans, to another massive breaking update right here on the channel. The 2026 BNP Paribas Open at Indian Wells has just delivered a shockwave that is actively reverberating through the entire Women's Tennis Association. And if you thought the California desert air was already running hot this March, you have not seen anything yet. We are talking about a round of 64 clash that had every spectator, analyst, and former player locked in from the first ball to the last. A match that transcended early round tennis entirely and delivered the kind of intensity you expect from Grand Slam quarterfinals, not second-round encounters at a WTA 1000 event. I am of course talking about Alexandra Eala of the Philippines going toe-to-toe with Ukraine's Dayana Yastremska. A collision of styles, generations, and sheer competitive will that has blown the landscape of this year's Sunshine Double Wide Open. Before we get into the tactical breakdown, we have to set the stage properly, because you cannot fully appreciate what this match meant without understanding the journeys both players took to reach it. Let us start with Alexandra Eala, because the trajectory she has been on over the last 12 months is one of the most extraordinary individual stories the WTA Tour has produced in recent memory. Just a year ago, she was hovering around world number 140, grinding through ITF circuit events and W75 tournaments, fighting to translate her undeniable junior pedigree into the brutal, unforgiving reality of senior professional tennis. Then everything changed. Over the following 52 weeks, Eala transformed from tennis's most excitingly kept secret into a genuine global superstar, rocketing up the rankings through a breakout run to the Miami Open semifinals as a wild card, dismantling Grand Slam champions including Iga Swiatek and Madison Keys along the way. She captured her first WTA 125 title in Guadalajara. She reached her maiden WTA Tour final on the grass courts of Eastbourne. She broke into the top 100, then the top 50, and arrived here in the Coachella Valley carrying a career-high ranking of world number 31, the highest any Filipino player has ever achieved in the sport's history. She came into Indian Wells off a spectacular quarter-final run in Dubai where she took down top-tier talents including Jasmine Paolini before falling to Coco Gauff. That run earned her a seeded position at a WTA 1000 event for the first time in her career, along with a first round by that set up this highly anticipated, heavily scrutinized round of 64 debut. And waiting across the net was Dayana Yastremska. If you have followed the WTA Tour over the past several years, you know exactly what Yastremska brings. She is a former world number 21, a three-time WTA title holder, and a player capable of producing some of the most devastatingly heavy offensive tennis on the entire planet when she is locked in. We all remember her extraordinary emotional run to the 2024 Australian Open semi-finals, blasting through the draw as a qualifier and proving that her explosive baseline game, when fully engaged, can overwhelm absolutely anyone regardless of ranking or reputation. She came into this match ranked 52nd in the world, having just dispatched experienced Chinese veteran Zheng Sai in the opening round, finding her rhythm and acclimatizing to the notoriously tricky high-bouncing conditions of the Indian Wells tennis garden. So you had the irresistible force of Yastremska's raw explosive power colliding directly with the immovable object of Eala's rapidly evolving, tactically intelligent, and increasingly complete all-court game. The stakes could not have been higher for either player. For Eala, this was about proving that her arrival in the top 32 is not a hot streak but a permanent new reality, about handling the weight of expectation, the hopes of a nation, and the target that comes with being a seeded player for the first time. For Yastremska, this was a golden opportunity to claim a significant scalp and reassert her power against the sport's exciting new generation. And hovering ominously in the third round, waiting for whichever player survived this slugfest. World number 4 and American superstar Coco Gauff, setting up a potential blockbuster rematch of their recent Dubai encounter that had tournament organizers and broadcasters practically salivating. The atmosphere on the grounds of Indian Wells was electric from the moment both players walked out. Filipino fans packed the stands to the rafters, flags waving, voices unified in chants that transformed the venue into something resembling a World Cup final rather than a second-round tennis match. Yastremska, steely and focused, looked ready to silence every one of them. The tension in the desert air was almost tangible. This was not just a match. This was a declaration of intent from two very different generations of WTA talent playing for survival on one of the biggest stages the sport offers. When you analyze the matchup between Eala and Yastremska, you are examining a genuinely fascinating contrast in tactical philosophy and court management, and the specific conditions of Indian Wells made it even more compelling. The Plexipave hard courts at the BNP Paribas Open are notoriously gritty. They absorb pace, produce extremely high bounces, and create an environment that rewards players who can construct points methodically, generate their own power, and use heavy topspin to push opponents deep behind the baseline. The desert air is dry and thin, allowing the ball to travel quickly through the atmosphere, but the moment it contacts the grabby surface, it slows down and kicks up at angles that can be genuinely difficult to handle. For Alexandra Eala, a left-handed southpaw from Quezon City, shaped by years of training at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, these conditions are a near-perfect canvas. Her signature weapon, that heavy looping left-handed forehand, was custom-built for exactly this kind of surface. She uses it to yank right-handed opponents wide, exposing the ad court and opening angles that simply do not exist for most players. Over the past year, she has added significant depth and weight to her ground strokes. She is no longer simply defending and waiting for opportunities. She is dictating. In her Indian Wells preparation, practicing alongside veterans like Laura Siegemund and emerging talents like Solana Sierra, Eala was clearly working on court positioning and net approach, understanding that on slow courts that produce long baseline rallies, the ability to move forward and finish points at the net can be a decisive tactical weapon. We saw those lessons applied beautifully throughout this match. Her ability to absorb heavy pace and redirect it down the line has become one of the most feared skills on the women's tour. And her lateral movement, the way she slides into her open stance backhand, absorbs pace, and throws up deep neutralizing replies, has improved to a level that genuinely surprised analysts who had followed her for years. Dayana Yastremska, by contrast, plays a brand of first-strike hyper-aggressive tennis that is exhilarating to watch when everything connects. She takes the ball exceptionally early to rob opponents of time, flattens her ground strokes to generate penetrating pace, and uses her two-handed backhand as a weapon that, when she is balanced and loaded, is genuinely lethal. Her return of serve is designed specifically to immediately put the server on the defensive. But the slow, gritty courts of Indian Wells present a specific challenge for flat hitters. When the ball does not carry cleanly through the court, when the surface grabs it and slows it just enough, a fast, anticipatory mover like Eala gets those crucial extra milliseconds to track the ball down and reset. That difference, measured in fractions of a second, changes the entire tactical equation. The psychological dimension of this specific matchup added another layer of complexity. Eala entered with a mental edge, having defeated Yastremska in their only previous encounter, a commanding straight-sets victory on the grass courts of Eastbourne in June 2025, winning 6-1, 6-2. Grass, of course, is a surface that heavily favors Yastremska's flat, penetrating game. And yet Eala had dismantled her there. Knowing she had done it on a fast surface that suited her opponent, and now stepping onto a slow, high-bouncing surface that suited her own game considerably more, gave the 20-year-old Filipina a confidence that was visible from her very first service game. But Yastremska is not a player who is easily intimidated by previous results or crowd noise. You do not reach the semi-finals of the Australian Open without possessing the kind of deep, hard-won mental resilience that carries you through exactly these pressure situations. She knew what she needed to do: disrupt Eala's rhythm before it could be established, attack the backhand wing early and aggressively, step inside the baseline on second serves, and deploy the drop shot to exploit Eala's tendency to position herself deep in the court. When Yastremska executes that game plan with full conviction, she looks entirely unplayable. She hits winners from positions where most players are simply trying to get the ball back over the net. What has defined Eala's surge into the top 30, however, is precisely the emotional maturity and defensive sophistication she has developed in response to exactly this kind of challenge. The match in Dubai against Jasmine Paolini, where she absorbed wave after wave of heavy offense before finding her moment, showcased an ability to weather storms that simply was not present in her game 18 months ago. When an opponent strings together 3 consecutive winners, Eala no longer tightens or reaches for low-percentage desperation shots. Resets. She trusts her fitness. She makes her opponent hit one more ball. And against a high-risk player like Yastremska, forcing one extra ball is frequently the difference between a forced error and a clean winner. We also cannot discuss any Alexandra Eala match without addressing the crowd factor, because it has become one of the defining features of her presence on the WTA Tour. The Filipino diaspora that follows her is massive, deeply passionate, and emotionally invested in her success at a level that few individual athletes generate from any fan base anywhere in the sport. When she played golf in Dubai, the stadium atmosphere was so overwhelmingly in her favor that Goff herself acknowledged how difficult it was to compete against not just a formidable opponent, but a building full of people pouring every ounce of their energy toward a single player. At Indian Wells, a venue famous for its enormous attendance and vibrant atmosphere even under normal circumstances, the energy surrounding Eala was something categorically different. Fans filled practice court 6 earlier in the week simply to watch her hit forehands. By the time she stepped onto the match court for the round of 64, the stands were a roaring, flag-waving testament to what she means to her country and her region. For a 20-year-old, that level of collective adoration carries weight. It can be paralyzing, a suffocating blanket of expectation that tightens with every unforced error. But Eala feeds on it in a way that speaks to something fundamental about her competitive makeup. She channels that crowd energy directly into her movement when her legs get heavy in extended rallies. She absorbs the collective will of thousands of people and converts it into something competitive. For Yastremska, playing not merely against a talented opponent but against an entire stadium required a level of sustained tunnel vision that is exhausting to maintain over 3 sets in desert heat. This match was a masterclass in contrasting philosophies and competing wills, and it exemplified precisely why women's tennis is in such a remarkable era right now. The established powerhouses are still present and still dangerous, but a fearless new generation has arrived, completely unbothered by reputations, unimpressed by rankings, and fully capable of dismantling the established hierarchy on the biggest stages in the sport. Eala represents something that extends well beyond her own individual story. She has spoken recently about the broader rise of Southeast Asian tennis, players from Thailand, Indonesia, and across the region pushing into territory that the sport had never previously seen from that part of the world. She is the spearhead of that movement, the proof of concept, the demonstration that world-class champions can emerge from anywhere if the talent, the support infrastructure, and the relentless work ethic converge at the right moment. The implications of this particular match at Indian Wells stretch far beyond ranking points and prize money. The winner earned the right to step onto Stadium 1 and face the immense challenge of Coco Gauff, and a potential Eala versus Gauff third-round encounter represented the absolute dream scenario for the tournament's commercial partners and broadcasting networks. 2 wildly talented, fiercely competitive, enormously marketable young women in their early 20s, battling it out in tennis paradise. The future of the sport playing each other in the present. But to get there, one player had to survive the crucible of this round of 64. Yastremska wanting to prove that experience and raw power still reign over youth and tactical evolution. Eala wanting to prove that world number 31 is not a ceiling but a waypoint. As the dust settles over the Indian Wells tennis garden, one thing has been made completely and irrevocably clear. Alexandra Eala has fully arrived. She is no longer a promising junior finding her footing. She is no longer a wild card relying on surprise and freedom. She is a seeded threat at WTA 1000 events, navigating main draws with the composure of a seasoned professional, handling the immense psychological weight of being the player everyone wants to beat while also being the player everyone wants to watch. The fact that she is managing all of this, the ranking pressure, the national expectations, the physical demands of the tour, the media scrutiny, the commercial obligations, at 20 years old is genuinely extraordinary. Her game is still developing. Her physical peak is still approaching. And her tactical understanding of professional tennis at this level grows richer and more nuanced with every match she plays. For Dayana Yastremska, the journey continues. Her firepower remains. One of the most formidable weapons on the tour on any given day. And on a surface or in a moment that suits her game, she remains entirely capable of beating anyone. Her story is far from written. But today belonged to a different story. Today belonged to the girl from Quezon City who crossed the world to chase a dream, and who is now making the entire world watch her chase it. Now we want to hear from you. What did you make of the tactical adjustments that define this match? Do you believe Eala has the complete all-court game required to push past players like Coco Gauff and crack the WTA top 10 before the year is out? Or do you think heavy-hitting veterans will continue finding ways to test the limits of this exciting new generation? Drop your thoughts, your tactical reads, and your predictions for the rest of the Indian Wells draw in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on your notifications, because we are following every match, every upset, and every championship run throughout this extraordinary 2026 season, all the way from Indian Wells through the Miami Open and beyond. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your passion. And thank you for loving this sport as much as we do.